Morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so happy to have our guest speaker today, Cathy Falkenberg. She's a dear friend of mine and also an amazing college admissions counselor. She's been doing this for about 10 years, and she actually went through the process 6 times with her own children. And looking at what she's accomplished with her 3 children, I know that she knows what she's talking about. And besides that, she's an associate member of the Independent Education Counselors Association and the National Association for College Admissions Counselors. So, without further ado, here is Cathy. Hi,
Thank you,
Cathy.
Amy. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. And as my family can attest, I love talking about college, and mainly because I love my work. I just really, really love what I do with students and families, and trying to guide them through this process that seems to be getting a little bit more complicated. So, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I love the fact that you yourself went through the process as a parent, and some of your daughters have finished the whole, even college process. So, you can kind of tell us what it's like afterward as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I tell you the truth, one of the reasons why I decided to get into this career, and I've gone through a lot of training and go to lots of conferences and taking lots of courses, but one of the reasons why I did it was because before I did this as a career and I was trying to guide my children, my own children, through the process, there were a lot of things that I did wrong, and a lot of things that I know that certainly wasn't my intention, but that I put a lot of pressure on my own kids. And when it came time for me to sort of shift and move into a different career, I really realized that I love this process. That if I could help other families and other students learn and try to remove some of the anxiety over it, that it would be worthwhile. So I haven't looked back since then. It's been fabulous working with families, building my own business, visiting colleges, meeting lots and lots of colleagues. So here I am.
Sounds good. So before I start asking you questions, I want to also thank the audience joining us live and want to remind you that if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section so that I can see and ask the questions to Cathy. And I'll try my best to get the answers for you before the live session is over. And then
Awesome.
this is a two-part series. Today we're
Yep.
going to focus on 9th and 10th graders. And then next week on Tuesday at the same time, 11 a.m., we're going to focus on the current juniors.
Excellent. And if I could, I'd like to sort of start first off with the idea of mindset and what kind of mindset we as families need to sort of really employ in beginning this process. The college search should be fun. It really is the first time that a teenager gets to do a little bit of adulting, if I may. It's a big decision. It's not the biggest decision they'll make in their life, but it should be something where they can be really excited about it. Um, as I talked about my own experience with my own children, I think that we as parents sometimes get too anxious over it and kind of take some of the fun out of it. So my hope is that I can help families tackle this with a way of really building on that excitement and allowing, number one, so first of all, have the right mindset. There's so many great colleges, universities, not just around the country, but around the world. A lot of students are also studying abroad. So honing in on just one college, just saying, I've got to go to this XYZ college or it's a bust. That's not a very healthy mindset, especially because things are getting so competitive right now. So that, and then encouraging, again, your student to be in the driver's seat. Sometimes that's not so easy for teenagers who either have too much other stuff going on or maybe a little bit afraid and scared to take that next step. So for us, I know us in the profession of college counseling, and I know parents as well, if we can just be really mindful of that and say, okay, let's empower the student to really look at it as their own process. The other, I would say, a really useful tip is have the college talk only once a week. The families with whom I work, they say, okay, pick a time, Sunday evening after dinner or before dinner or during dinner. Talk about college then, but don't talk about college all the time, because that is definitely going to suck some of the fun out of it for the student. And then the last tip would be try to recruit the rest of your family, your extended family, into having the same mindset, so that when you get together for family gatherings, especially around Thanksgiving, don't always be asking the student about college. You know, they have a lot of other fun stuff to talk about. So mindset is really, really important. But if you could pull up the slides, I'd like to talk about the trends that we are seeing currently. So much has changed, obviously, with COVID, and with families with students at home that are having to learn online and trying to adjust to all of that. It has been so difficult. The results of COVID and the pandemic also have changed, in my the things in the college process. So and there's been lots of news articles about this. So some of the trends: more schools going test optional or going test blind. And what I mean by that is that a test optional school will say, hey, we're not requiring you to submit an SAT or an ACT, but if you have it, send it to us. A test blind school says, we don't want to see any scores. Don't send them to us. And if you send them to us, we're not going to look at them or consider them in your application process. So for those families in California, or families considering having their students apply, or for the students who are considering applying to the University of California systems, they were one of the first university systems to make some decisions around this. So they will be test optional for the fall of 2021 and 2022, and then become test blind for fall 2023 and 24. And then the talk is they're going to create their own test. So don't just think that the test, the SAT or ACT, will go away completely. The UC system's working on their own version. But at any rate, there's lots right now. I think it's about 1,700 universities and colleges that have gone test blind for this cycle and next application cycle as well. So that may not for 9th graders and 10th graders, since we're focusing on them today. My recommendation would be to still prepare for those tests without adding a lot of anxiety over it, but still prepare, because we're not sure what the majority of colleges will be doing by the time that they apply. Another trend is we have seen numbers skyrocket, especially the highly selective schools. And this is primarily a result of the test optional policies. We have seen, Harvard has like 43% more applications. Colgate, which is a smaller, it's a school on the East Coast, has seen 106% increase in applications. So most of this is because students who were really great students, very strong academics and activities, but may have not tested quite so high, decided, well, since I don't have to submit tests, I'm going to go ahead and throw my hat in at some of these other schools. It's making it easier to apply, of course, but it's also making it much more competitive, because admission offices all of a sudden have so many applications to process and go through. So much so that some schools have actually extended the deadline. The Ivy League schools used to notify their students by the end of March They just announced that they are extending it until April 6th. So the students will be have to wait till April 6th. Another big trend is demonstrated interest, the weight of the letters of recommendation, and the demonstration of the student's character through the application. Demonstrated interest sort of means the relationship that the student builds with that college before they actually submit their application. So you can do that by joining the mailing list, by visiting, of course. That's become a little bit harder these times because a lot of schools are not offering on-campus visits. But there's lots of other ways to demonstrate interest. You're emailing your admissions rep, signing up for virtual tours where you actually have to register and put in your name and your email and your address so that they know you attended. And even some social media things is connecting with the colleges via social media. It sounds easy, but it adds another layer of work that the students and the family have to do. The letters of recommendation really mean sort of what the impression of the teachers who have taught those students have about their ability to succeed in college. Obviously, those have always been important, but they've become even more important. And lastly, the student's character. You got to remember that there's other humans on the other side of the desk reading those applications. And they really want to read each application, get to know the student really well, and picture them as what kind of student will they make as part of our college community. So it's really important to talk about not just the accomplishments, but the character of the student as well. And that's why I say that character matters more than ever. That also means, keeping your social media clean and not having any disciplinary problems, that kind of stuff. And then the last big trend is that it's hard to get on campus and go to really experience it as a prospective student. So, but on the other hand, colleges have done a fabulous job at creating virtual tours, at having access to current students for families to talk with. And so it's all good there. It's just a little bit different. So, okay, let's talk specifically about 9th and 10th graders. If we could go to the next slide. There you go. Okay, so these poor students, most of them have been sitting on Zoom classes and, really miss their friends. And then all of a sudden they have to think about college. But again, having the right mindset will help. They're also in the process of choosing their classes for next year. So if you've got a 9th or 10th grader and you're in the process of doing that, I would suggest plan out the full 4 years of classes that the student may need to take, especially in the science and the math, there'll be prerequisites. But it's best to sort of plan ahead so that, for example, if you have a student that is very STEM oriented and wants to maybe consider a science or engineering, especially engineering, they need to finish high school with a calculus class. So you got to plan ahead to be able to get into that progression of classes. And then one of the things that I think it's one of the most important is to build strong relationships with your teachers. Wow, and I know that's tough to do over Zoom. And teachers are really missing their students as well if everything is going virtual. But it's so important for students to let the teachers get to know them as more than just a student academically. And what I mean by that is, speak up in class, ask the questions, be cooperative in class. If you really know a subject really well, but you've got classmates that maybe need a little bit of extra help, then offer that help. Or on the other hand, if you're really grappling with a subject that you don't really quite understand, keep trying, go for help with the teacher or find other ways so that they can see wow, the student is really intelligent, but they're also not just hard workers, but inquisitive and really willing to help their classmates, or vulnerable enough to be willing to ask for help, those kind of things. Because those are the kind of things we want to see in those letters of recommendation that will help the colleges get to know the student better. So, okay, next point for 9th and 10th graders. Double down on what you love to do. And what I mean by that is, don't feel that you have to join a whole bunch of different clubs or organizations or teams just to make your college resume look good. What colleges really want are, well, let me back up. My motto is never do anything or commit to doing something just because it's going to look good in college, in your college rep. You should commit to doing things because it's something that you value and it's really important for you, and it helps you grow as a person, and you can have a lot of fun doing it. But if you are going to commit to something, then double down on it. Meaning, if you join the art club at your school, plan on being in that club for the full 4 years. Or if you enjoy a particular service activity, then plan on doing it for a few years, because it's just going to help you grow. As an example, I have a student who, she had some health concerns, so she couldn't really be out in public, and she wanted to be able to do some service work. So she created this way of helping underprivileged children celebrate their birthdays. So she would put birthday kits together of, party favors and hats and some snacks and stuff, and put them into these beautiful little bags, and then distribute them through a homeless shelter or through the Boys and Girls Club. And that, as she kept doing that, it just grew into a really cool organization. And she's done that for a few years. She's off to college now next year, but there was something fun that she created, and helped a lot of people. So again, if it's just one activity that you love doing it, just double down on it. Okay. Plan meaningful activities for the summer. And, it used to be that there were, and there still are, lots of available opportunities for students to explore a career. It's a great time to explore, okay, if you think you want to go into architecture, can you really do 1 or 2 week program that gives you a good knowledge of what that is? Or if you want to go work at the frozen yogurt shop, go do that. It's fabulous, especially paid work. But just don't stay home and play video games. Find some time to relax too. But, virtual tours to learn more about the colleges is a great thing for 9th and 10th graders to start doing, just so that they can know, okay, do I like a big school? Do I like a smaller school? Do I think I want to have something that is sort of in the middle of nowhere and really serene? Or do I want to go to college in the middle of the city? Those are really good things to start exploring now. And then the last one is read. Like actually picking up a book and reading. Readers make great writers, and it's just going to help. Summer is a great time to do that. So, any questions so far before I go to the next slide? Okay. Okay, I talked about that, planning out your 4 years of your high school courses. Then seek leadership roles or create your own. Now, leadership is something that will be really important in the college process. Like I said, colleges, when they are reading a student's application, really want to envision what kind of student will this person be in my college community. They love to have students that are willing and ready and able to come in and help out the college community grow. So a leader and leadership isn't just being president of student council or captain of your team. It is doing activities that really show A, your character, and B, your willingness to serve others in any kind of leadership role. So that, I would say, is one of the things that is often overlooked, especially students that are very academically strong, but then end up having not so strong extracurriculars, it's called. Again, if there's really just one student council president, but it doesn't mean that you can't come up with other ways to demonstrate leadership. And then the last one I'll talk about here for 9th and 10th graders, and I have to say that maybe I'm a little old-fashioned about this, but the reality is that a digital presence, a positive digital presence, will be important. I actually, with the students that I work with, I have them build a LinkedIn page, or also do a blog, or if things that they really enjoy doing, and especially things that they're doing for the community, if they're in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, or those are the kind of things that will present a very positive image for them, but also get them ready and fit for higher education. Every freshman going into college should already have a LinkedIn page, because by the time their first semester of college is over, they will be applying for an internship for the summer. And it's a great habit to get into. But and on the other note, positive digital presence also means be very careful that anything else that you have on your social media, that is something that you would feel comfortable having your grandma look at it. That's sort of my barometer is, if if your grandma wouldn't be happy seeing it, then don't post it. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So, I could talk about this for a long time. Love talking about college. But so next week, when we focus a little bit more on the juniors who are really rolling up their sleeves and getting to the business of getting their college applications ready, we'll be talking about best fit college. What does that mean? How do you build your college list? We'll also talk a little bit more specifically about how to ask for strong letters of recommendation, and who are the best people to have write a letter on your behalf. We'll also talk a little bit more about testing, if and when to test, since we know for the current junior class, we already know that there'll be a lot of test optional colleges. Then we'll get into more of the details on how to write those essays, and what are good topics to write about and what are not so good topics to write about, so some to avoid. We'll also talk about more specifics on how to start demonstrating interest now for juniors. You got to kind of act now. And then we'll talk about college visits as well. So any questions so far, Amy?
Let's see. Can we come back and have you and then we can come back to the screen later? Let's see. I was just monitoring
Okay.
Here. Let me add myself. Thank you for all those tips that you've given us. And from there, I had some questions. So let's talk about social media. So one thing that I've suggested to my girls is that not only use like their Instagram page as just like a social thing, but it could be like a summation of what they've been doing throughout their high school. So be more have a strategy when it comes down to what they're posting. Like, what do you think about that kind of idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, a couple of things that we want to talk about that's important there. Colleges are using social media very, very often to connect with students because they know that's where students are. So students can start connecting with colleges via social media to learn more about that particular school. But there is also something called enrollment management. And right now, I have a lot of colleagues and friends that I know that are enrollment managers for colleges, and they're having a hard time with all of these changes because they're trying to figure out, okay, if we offer admission to a student, how likely are they to attend our school? And because they need to know, how many students will be enrolling each year, and they have these very complicated programs and algorithms that help them keep up with what the interest of the student is. One of the ways they do it is through social media. Okay, how many times has the student reached out or engaged with that school? But more importantly, for the younger students, like your girls, to start keeping track of things that are really meaningful to them, and especially of them doing activities that are really important and meaningful to them. Part of that, they can then sort of show it. If a college reviews the social media of the student, that will be evident. But another thing that is available to students is they can, not for all colleges, but some, they can submit a video. Colleges are saying, hey, help us get to know you better. Can you submit a 2-minute video for us to be able to see? And what a great thing to have this photos that you can go back to, or videos of them interacting with their teammates or performing at something at school or something like that. So I think, but the most important part is for students and young adults to understand that this is sort of part of their social media becomes part of their brand, or part of the image that they are willing to present to other people.
Actually, that brings up a good point. I guess one thing I can do as a parent is to take good pictures and video footage so to make it available for my children to use.
Yes, I know. That's exactly, I've been having that conversation with a bunch of my families this past week, and say, please keep some videos. Or I use a platform with the students that I work with called College Planner Pro, where we can actually upload things and files for us to use later, and say, let's, if your student is doing a solo at the school concert, take some video of that, a couple of minutes, not even, just short clips, and send them to me, so that when they're completing their applications, they can put together a short video. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
We have one question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay. No, go ahead. No.
Okay. She says, in case of test optional, when would you say to submit test scores versus hold back? Is there a certain score point?
Yes, if you've got a student who's a really strong test taker, by all means have them take the test. And test optional, like it says, it really gives you the option if if the student doesn't feel that their score is really indicative of their academic work, then they can choose not to submit it. But there are ways where you can see the range of the test scores for admitted students for that particular school. A couple of ways to do that. Oftentimes, colleges will publish it on their website. Or there is also something called the college data set, which will give us, it's something that colleges have to report every year, and it gives us lots of data about that particular school, everything from their average test score to whether they consider demonstrated interest, or whether they offer interviews, or how important they consider the rigor of coursework. So there's that information is available. And then again, to that the platform that I use, a College Planner Pro. With each of my students, we get a profile of each school, and it shows us very clearly what the range is. So of admitted students, so we can say, okay, if the test scores fall within that range pretty solidly, then let's submit test scores. If they're well below, then it might be wiser not to submit.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
So. It could be another Facebook Live session later on, but I want to touch upon it because I do have an 8th grader who hopes to play soccer for her college. And you had mentioned to me earlier that they go through a little bit different process where the whole college admissions process start between 9th and 10th grade. So can you kind of touch upon it?
Yeah. For the really strong athletes that have the ability to perhaps play in college, you really want to start the process earlier. There are very specific rules that coaches have to abide by that are set by the NCAA, and all that information is available on their website, but I can help walk you through it as well. Very specific rules about when the coaches can contact the students, but the students can always contact the coaches. So what I would say is start that process thinking, okay, first of all, how strong an athlete is my child, and the coach, your high school or coach or club coach will be the first person you can ask. There is potential there, and then you can start. Each college will have a questionnaire that college recruits can complete. I also have my student athletes start a little athletic resume that talks about their stats. They talk about, okay, what position do they play, and you can put that together and start emailing it to coaches and saying, and the emails have to come from the student, by the way, not from the parent. For the student to say, hey, I'm in 9th grade and I'm a really great student. Here's the classes I'm taking so far, and I love soccer and I've played in such and such club, and this is my position, and that kind of stuff. So it takes a bit of time to build that relationship with the coaches, and it's almost like it's like a whole nother layer to the college admission process. But above them, the student always should keep an eye on their academic work as well, because coaches will want to bring in students that are also strong academic students. And for your daughter, I would say for really, really strong athletes that colleges start wanting to get them to commit early on. That's always a really good option, but I recommend to families that keep your options open until junior year, when you have to make it official as to which college your child will be attending.
Okay, thank you. We have another question coming in. It says, my daughter is in 10th grade at a large public school. Should she get a recommendation from her teachers this year, as it has been hard for her to make relationship with the teachers over Zoom? So she's in 10th grade now.
Okay. So I would say, always try to do your best to get the teacher to know who you are. The letters of recommendation for this particular student will be better for 11th grade. So for all students, you really want, sort of the rule of thumb is getting academic teachers in your 11th grade. So I would say, start teaching that student how to create that relationship with the teacher. Ask for extra questions and that kind of stuff. So 11th grade. Start thinking about it that next fall.
Okay. Another question is, do you think PSAT will be eliminated like the SAT or ACT, or will colleges use them to evaluate students in place of SAT or ACT?
Okay, interesting question. Wow, that's a good one. I haven't had one in any of my meetings. So the PSAT is given really as a practice test. That's what PSAT stands for. But it also evolved into a qualification for National Merit Scholarship qualification. So when lots of schools offer the PSAT in 10th grade, that doesn't count for anything. It really is to give the student the experience of sitting through a test, to give the student the confidence that comes with that experience, and then for them to know, okay, what are the things that I need to focus on a little bit better. When they take the PSAT the fall of their junior year, that test is what's used as a qualifier for National Merit Scholarship. National Merit, that is based on per state. There will be an index score that gets generated in that report, and it really is a very top percentage of students, like 0.5% or the top 1%. That index number changes every year a little bit, but it does. So I have not heard anything about that particular test going away, really. One of the things that's important to know when a student takes a PSAT their junior year is that the colleges never get to see that score, whatever that score is. But the colleges will buy a list from College Board of, let's say, okay, send us the list of students that scored in the top 20% of that state. They just get that list. They don't get the specific score for the student, but they use that for marketing purposes. Really, they use it for, you'll start getting lots of stuff in the mail and lots of marketing pieces.
Would you say at least that puts them in the radar of a school if your child scores pretty high on PSAT?
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely, it will. Okay, here's one of the things to remember too, including in the mindset, is that these colleges are institutions. They are, in essence, business institutions that also have to have their own institutional priorities. So they spend a lot of money in marketing. They spend a lot of money trying to get more and more students to apply to their particular school. So have that consumer mindset also, when you're going through the process. But this has happened quite a bit, and it happened with my own children too. That a very highly selective school buys a PSAT list, and they start sending these letters that say, dear Johnny, you're a great student. We would love for you to apply to, let's say, one of the top schools. That really is sometimes just a marketing piece. And families sometimes think, oh my goodness, such and such school really, really wants my kid. And they start then just considering those really top tier schools without giving themselves more options. And it can kind of get you in a little trouble. So that consumer mindset is important to have as well. But yes, to answer your question, it does get them into the, sort of on the college's list that, yep.
You mentioned something about, asking your children to set up a LinkedIn profile. Can you suggest a couple of steps that they need to do, they should do after they have an account? So just, the account sitting there is not going to do them anything.
Yeah, and I do that. I mean, I don't have ninth graders necessarily doing a LinkedIn page yet, but it's certainly for 11th graders and 12th graders, they can use it as a way to explore careers, and maybe connecting with students from that particular college, or even you as a family connect them with people that if you've got a student that is considering architecture, for example, and then they can sort of see what that world of that particular career is about. Not to say that there's anything wrong with students going in to college undecided, which is it's a great time to really explore what your strengths are and your interests. But it's more effective or more efficient to at least have an idea, a couple of options that you're thinking about majoring in. So I would say, yeah, if you're in 11th grade, then through LinkedIn, you can also connect with the colleges that you're interested in and see what kind of things you're posting. Just getting used to what that process is and what a sort of a professional social media looks like versus a personal one.
Sounds good. Actually, another question is related to what you just mentioned. The question is, when we apply to college, most of us applied as undeclared. But I'm hearing that it is very different now, and kids now have to know what they want to major in, and that oftentimes that changes based on each school that they apply to. What are your thoughts on
Okay.
how we navigate when our 17, 18-year-old has no clue what they want to do?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question, and it is one of the things that is so different. Parents, it is nothing like it was when we were applying to colleges. We just got to really settle in. It's completely different. Let's take, for example, the University of California systems, where they have majors that are already impacted. So if a student wants to go into particular, especially STEM fields, engineering or biochemistry or something like that, and you have to apply to that major, it becomes a decision as to, okay, what does that student, how can that student best open options for themselves? The reality is that about 1/3 of college students will change their majors at least once, if not twice, during their college career. There are a lot of colleges that honor that, so they will tell the students, hey, you don't have to declare a major until second semester of your sophomore year, which is, I think, really freeing for the student to have that freedom to explore. Some of them say, hey, if you want to go into engineering or if you want to go into business, you've got to apply to that business school as a freshman or you're not getting in. So yes, it depends on the school. That's one of the things about college admissions, and particular. I mean, you'll hear a lot of counselors like me answering lots of questions by saying it depends, because it does. It depends on what the particular school, what their parameters are. So
Is there a website or something that you can check to see what happens after they finish college? Like for me, is if my children are applying, I can say, do they really have to major in this to get into the second? Or does the master program not require you to major in this particular major for you to get to the next
yeah,
step?
yeah. So a great place to start is the career center for each college. So when your student does choose, when the student enters college, and or even just visiting as a prospective student, once they can get on campus, and you can also do this through websites because they have lots of information, but I suggest go into the career center office and see what they will have. Lots of information about where their graduates end up, how many, lots of universities will publicize, okay, a percentage of our graduating class went on to medical school or veterinary school or business school, or how this a high percentage were employed right after college. Of course, as a result of the pandemic, those employers are having more difficulty coming in and doing the traditional career fairs at the schools, but they've gotten pretty creative in doing virtual fairs and things like that. So I would say that would be the first place to start, is with that particular school. There's a lot of other information, and if a family has a very specific question, I would encourage them to contact me directly, and I can point them to a few options to take a look at sort of that career. If my student wants to study graphic design, what is the average salary for them? And those are so much information out there. It's one of the reasons why this process is a little overwhelming, but it's all good.
Sounds good. I think it's also important for parents to remind ourselves that college is a means, a pathway to an end.
Mm-hmm.
College itself is not the end. I feel like the 18-year-olds are just starting their lives when they
absolutely, yeah. And you'll see it. You see it as your kid who starts high school and is a ninth grader is the one who graduates as a 12th grader is a completely different person, right? Same thing happens in college. So much growth. So here's a really good mindset also to have. It's not about getting into the best college. It's about getting out as the best person you can be. So it helps realizing that there's so many great options that students have, and that kids can succeed in so many different places as well. So, but college is not just about the academics. It's about the social growth. It's about them gaining their independence and how to take care of themselves and how to advocate for themselves. Those are really important milestones into adulthood.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for all the information you shared with us, Cathy. I look forward to continuing on this conversation, but we are getting close to, about an hour mark.
Okay.
So I'm going to wrap up today's session, but before we do that, I always ask our speakers 2 questions. The first one is to ask them to help us get to know other resources, other books, and if you can make any recommendations. And the second question is, where can we find you if you want more information from you or if you want to work with you?
Perfect. Okay. So one of my favorite, as far as books, I've read so many different books, and I've got some on my website, www.fitforhighered.com. But one of my favorite books is, there we go. Madeline Levine, The Price of Privilege. I got to meet her personally when my own kids were in high school. And she came and gave a presentation at our school, and she was just fabulous. I just think for any age, this is a great book for any age. And then there is one of my favorite independent education consultants like me. His name is Stephen Antonov. And he wrote this book a while back. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, my intelligence is not so great. College Match is a really great book. He's got a few new additions since things have changed so much. I also have a lot of resources on my website as well, if parents want to go. And if you can put up that slide with the upcoming workshops. Okay, there you go. So I will be hosting workshops. They will be 12 hours of instruction with 4 hours. That's okay. There we go.
Oh no. Sorry.
Yes. So for students who are juniors, I'll be doing these workshops, and I'll talk about it again next week as well. So they can sign up for a weekend, either April 17th and 18th, or May 29th and 30th, or June 24th, 25th, and 26th. We will be actually doing some of the application work, talking about letters of recommendation, doing drafts for our essays, talking a little bit more in depth about this sort of digital presence. So they can find me at www.fitforhighered.com or at my email, cathyfalkenberg@gmail.com, or call me 614-202-8047. I'd be happy to answer any of their questions.
Oh, thank you so much. Let me see if we can bring us back.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
And thank you for doing that, by the way, just to let the audience know. I'm really good about talking about college. I'm not very good at technology, so I couldn't figure out
how to share my screen. No problem. I'm glad that we got it to work out and they got to see your presentation. So,
Thank
sounds
you.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, Cathy. I'm so glad that we're doing this as a two-part series so that we get to see you again next week. And for those of you who are in our group, just know that you will have a chance to ask questions to Cathy again. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add them under the comment section, and I'll definitely check it and make sure that we get those questions addressed next week. So once again,
Perfect.
we're gonna see you again next Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Okay.
Pacific Standard Time. Okay.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me, Amy. Thank you. Bye.